Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to our the final session for the webinar series where we've been focusing on data science as it relates to agriculture and forestry. We've started this session for the past 3 weeks, and this is the final session. So for today, we'll be having Dr. Simbiat and Aminat, who will be presenting laser spectroscopy and GIS application in forestry and agriculture, respectively. And after each session, you already know that you should send the quiz responses as responses to the email you already received. So let's start by having Simbiat. So let us know you shortly. Then before then, I'll try to make Simbiat the host so that she can share a slide. So, okay, let me go here now. Yes. Oh, good. That's fine.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, but you can make
Okay.
it a slideshow kind of thing.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. You're welcome. Thank you for showing up.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And yeah, thank you once again to CFAG for the kind invitation. So today I'll be speaking on laser spectroscopy and data science application in agroforestry systems. Can you still see my screen?
Yeah, we can clearly. But it's still on the
Okay.
front page. So, yeah.
Okay, just give me 1 minute. Oh, okay. I'm back here. Yeah. So in this short talk, I will give us an overview on how laser-based techniques and data science can support and has been supporting smarter agricultural and environmental decision making based on this agenda as listed here. But before we dig in, a brief about me. My name is Doyinsola Simbiat Shonoekioyelaja. And I have a diverse educational background, starting with my bachelor from FUTA, Nigeria, in agricultural technology from the Department of Crop, Soil, and Pest Management. My joint master's degree funded by the prestigious Erasmus Mundus Scholarship in Soils and Global Change from the Bioscience Engineering Department, Ghent University, Belgium, and the Department of Soil Physics and Hydropedology, Aarhus University, Denmark. And lastly, my recently earned terminal degree, PhD in supercontinuum laser spectroscopy from the Electrical and Photonics Engineering, DTU. In addition to my educational background, I have a strong presence in both the scientific and community world, as listed here. And I have also bagged some quite competitive scholarship and funding, as also listed below. So with that brief about me, then I'll go back to why we are all here today. So back to the focus. How is laser spectroscopy and data science applied in agroforestry systems, and why is it important? We all know that currently both agriculture and forestry are facing increasing challenges that requires safe and fast method to solve it. So not just a safe method, but a very fast one. So one of these problems is nutrient depletion in soil, which is affecting both the quality of human and the environment at large, as shown in this image. Another problem is climate-related stress, such as drought, and also environmental contamination and pollution. So all of these factors, as mentioned, and many more, directly affect the productivity and the sustainability in agroforestry systems. We have existing traditional methods that have been used so far, such as wet chemistry methods like gravimetric analysis. But all these traditional methods are very slow. They are also very expensive and they are not environmentally friendly. But the goal here is to have a safe environment and not to run it further. However, modern methods are our savior. There are existing modern methods and they are fast. They are also very cost effective, but they require data-driven decision. With these modern methods, we can quickly detect nutrient in soil, we can measure food composition, we can have information on crop quality, we can detect contaminants. We can also monitor environmental pollution in real time just by measuring the chemical information of the material or samples to be analyzed. All these modern methods are under one umbrella, which is the applied spectroscopy, applied laser spectroscopy. But before we dig into the different applications that has been done using this applied laser spectroscopy, I will just briefly give us an overview of what laser spectroscopy is. So as shown on this slide, the laser spectroscopy techniques works by you have a laser light that is being focused onto the sample. So the light interact with the sample to be measured. And these samples react and respond in a unique way because of the atoms and molecules present in the sample that you are measuring. So these atoms and molecules emit or absorb specific wavelengths from the light, and they are being recorded as spectrum, which is spectrum of intensity of that light as a function of the wavelength. So the goal of these old techniques lies in the spectrum. The spectrum acts like the fingerprint, which actually tells us the information about the sample. And this information, we can have the chemical information based on the interaction of the light with the sample. And by measuring and analyzing the spectrum, we can obtain the chemical information that we need that will tell us what the sample contains, what we need to know about the whole analysis. There are several types of laser spectroscopy techniques, but I'll be showing us two different main types that is relevant to agroforestry systems. One of them is the laser-induced breakdown spectroscopy, which is shown on this slide. And this technique, this laser spectroscopy techniques, is also known as emission spectroscopy and is primarily used for elemental analysis. So this works by you focus a very high power laser, as shown in this image, onto the sample surface to vaporize a very small amount of the material. So with this, we also know that we are managing the resources. We don't have to use too much of the resources. So this is going to vaporize a very small amount of the sample on the surface, just on the surface. And by doing that, this leads to what is called plasma. And that is what you are seeing here. That looks like, how can I, like maybe lightning or something. But I'm not going to bore us what plasma is because there's so much physics and chemistry going into that. But based on the limited time that we have, just know that for these techniques, it relies on the plasma that is being formed when the laser interacts with the sample by vaporizing the sample. So that plasma emits light at different wavelengths, and that light is what we captured and analyze. So we capture it as spectrum, then we analyze it for to have further information about the sample. So for example, these techniques in forestry system, it is very useful for analysis involving if you want to, for example, you want to measure what amount of nitrogen is in the soil. Nitrogen is an element, so this technique is very, very okay to use for that. If you also want to maybe know amount of potassium content in food and so on like that, you can use these techniques. Another very relevant one for the agroforestry system is known as absorption spectroscopy. And this works, as shown on this slide, it works by measuring the amount of light. So this is the light interacting with the target, which is sample in our case. So these techniques measure the amount of light that is going through the sample, which is like amount of light transmitted through the sample or the amount of light absorbed by the sample. And the detector is just a spectrometer that captures the spectrum I've been mentioning so far. Yeah. So for these particular techniques, this is different from the LIBS, the laser-induced breakdown spectroscopy, because this does not just give us the elemental information about the sample we want to measure. It gives us information about the molecular composition of that sample. So it identifies the different organic compounds present. And that is why this is very strongly using if you are not only focusing on you want to maybe measure nutrient deficiency in soil, for example, but maybe you want to measure contamination in soil, like microplastics contamination. You want to measure food contents. Absorption spectroscopy is very, very valuable for that. So both of these two techniques that are very relevant for this agroforestry system are very fast, as I mentioned previously, and they also requires minimal preparation as compared to the traditional methods, and they can work beyond the lab. So you can use them in the field. So it's not just in situ, you can also use them ex situ. So for laser spectroscopy techniques, there is a general workflow that is being applied for these techniques, and this involves 3 steps, as shown on this slide. The first step is to prepare your sample. We all know if you want to analyze something, you have to like make preparation for that. So we start by preparing our sample. So I included a picture of a soil sample. It can be any sample. Laser spectroscopy is not only restricted to a particular sample, it's multi versatile. Yeah. So you can apply it to any kind of sample. So I'm only just using this for visual sake. So we start by preparing our sample, and this involves sieving. This involves sieving to remove contaminants that can interfere with the measurement. It also involves drying, mostly for any spectroscopy techniques. We mostly air dry just to ensure that we are not subjecting our sample to too high temperature. So it's preferable to air dry rather than oven drying. Then sample preparation also involves you weighing your samples to different quantities, to different weight that you want to measure. And then the next step is the data collection. That is when you start measuring your sample. So you acquire the spectrum, like multiple spectrum, that's spectra. So you acquire your spectra from each of the measurements of your samples. And during this, since you are measuring more than one samples, it means you also need to ensure you label your sample data correctly. And the last step is which actually makes this whole technique promising for the agroforestry system is the machine learning. However, it is often called chemometrics in this field, but they both means the same. So if you know machine learning, you're also talking about chemometrics. So for this phase, it involves firstly the pre-processing phase. Is someone talking to me? Oh, okay. So yeah, as I was
Yeah,
saying,
we are
oh, okay, thank you. So as I was saying, for this final phase, this machine learning phase, the first step is you have to pre-process your spectra collected. I'm going to show what pre-processing means later on, but from the word pre-processing, it means you have to do something before you get into the main analysis, because your samples is going to involve so many information. So you have to like prepare it before you get into the analysis. And pre-processing could involve something like you want to filter out noise if your spectra is noisy, you want to remove baseline offsets, you want to improve band separation and the likes. So there are several types of pre-processing methods, which if you're interested, you can also just read more about that. And then after you pre-process the spectra, the final step is the model building. And that is mostly where the machine learning actually comes in. Pre-processing is also machine learning, right? But the main goal of machine learning is actually the model building because that is the main analysis backbone. It helps us with the decision making to confirm the content or presence of the analyte we are measuring. So now I'm going to just show some few applications of laser spectroscopy as in agroforestry system, and one of them is soil analysis. So laser spectroscopy has been applied in soil analysis, and it has been used to determine nutrient composition, monitor soil fertility, detect heavy metals and environmental pollutants in soils. For example, this plot here is a study by Benjamin et al., where they demonstrated the application of absorption spectroscopy for microplastic detection in soil. So as shown here, they successfully detected 3 different types. And looking at the image, you can also see that the peaks in each of these types differs. So the application of this is particularly important in precision agriculture, where spatial variation in soil nutrient matters. Another application I'll be showing us is for forage and crop quality, and this helps to determine the mineral composition in the crop, or forage is also a crop type. So in one of my work, which I have shown here, where we have used leaves for detecting essential nutrients in animal feeds. So we analyzed forage and wanted to know what content, the nutrient content in the forage. So as shown here, you can use leaves. I mentioned already that it's basically for elemental analysis. So here we were able to identify carbon, zinc, sulfur, and others. And by analyzing these forage and crops, it can help support livestock nutrient management. It's also very important for food security and sustainable agricultural practices. Beyond soil and crops, laser spectroscopy can also monitor environmental emissions, as shown in this plot. Pollutants like greenhouse gases, such as carbon monoxide, ammonia, and the likes. And this makes it very relevant, not just for agriculture, but also for broader environmental and climate studies. But here is where things becomes interesting. So I've been measuring spectrum, spectrum, spectrum. This is what spectrum looks like. And this spectrum, they contain thousands of variables or wavelength. And they are also very high dimensional data. So it is very difficult for you to just look at the spectrum and be able to predict or say whatever it represents. So because of this, that is why I said, before you go into the model building, you have to pre-process. And for this spectrum, when we pre-process it, we can see that we have many clearer peaks, more significant than what you are seeing here, because this, you could have like a weak peak that is very relevant for your analysis, but because this is raw data, you can't see it until you pre-process. And pre-processing it will help you further with your any types of analysis you want to do further. So this is the part where data science is actually very essential. So in laser spectroscopy, we use statistical and multivariate techniques, also known as chemometrics. And one method being applied in laser spectroscopy under the data science is the pattern recognition. PCA is an example of it. And what I've shown here is a PCA analysis where they demonstrated the distinction. They demonstrated classification and separation of different microplastics, and also the sizes of this microplastic. And not just demonstrating, okay, we can distinguish among these microplastic. They also explore the loading plot from this PC analysis. And that is where you can tell from the peak what chemical bands are actually contributing to the distinction seen in the score plot of the PC analysis. And all of this is always based on an existing database. Another data science application for laser spectroscopy is applying linear models such as partial least square regression, or you build a nonlinear model such as support vector machine. So this is also another example where they predicted So not just detecting, you can also predict the concentration of the analytes you are measuring. So yeah, they demonstrated that, okay, we can predict the different concentration of these microplastics based on some metrics, which they have shown here. So the R square is mostly used for the metric in laser spectroscopy. So instead of visually inspecting spectra, we allow algorithms like this to learn relationships between the spectral data and chemical composition. So with these few slides, we have an overview of what laser spectroscopy is and its application in agroforestry systems. However, if I know many of us might be completely new to this, but due to time limited, I can't keep going into too many details. But in case any one of you is interested and you're an undergraduate here today, you can start gradually by understanding how spectra represents chemical information. You learn basic data analysis. You can take introductory online courses. You can join research group voluntarily just to acquire the relevant experience or skills. And if you're a graduate student, you can also start by understanding how spectra represents chemical information. You learn multivariate analysis, which I showed, but then you can learn more to get started. You can understand how this data preprocessing works, and you can also collaborate within research groups in the field. So to wrap it up, but overall, you have to be open-minded. Sorry, yeah, you have to be open-minded. So to wrap this presentation up, laser spectroscopy enables fast chemical analysis. Spectral data requires data science tools, and applications are critical in agroforestry systems. And the juicy part is that you can build valuable interdisciplinary skills in this field. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so
That's
much
it.
for the detailed presentation. So for everyone, we have the quiz question in the chat box now before we transition into the second session. Do we have any question? That was good. I loved the spectrum, laser,
Thank you.
everything I heard this morning. Thank you so much, Dr. Simbiat. Do we have
Thank
any
you.
question? So you have the quiz question there in the chat box. So please don't miss out on the answers. Just send us response to the email you received earlier. So I'll see you in the next session by 12:30. Thank you so much, Doyinsola.
You're
Yeah, I
very
think
welcome.
I
Yeah.
think we are good. Everyone
Okay.
understand, and we hope to get the right answers to the secret to the question.
To the quiz. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So for people who missed out on the first and second session, to get the certificate, you have to answer at least 3 quiz questions. So for today, for people who are available today, you have the opportunity to answer 2. So we have the last week's video recording on our YouTube channel. So you have the opportunity to watch and send the quiz response as reply to the email you received last week. So do that before Monday if you're interested in certificate, but if you're not interested, it's okay to learn. So I'll see you in the next session before we do this further. I'll see you. All right, bye. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Thank you so much.